Today, I'm attempting to talk about all of the background characters in Hell, and when I say all, I mean just the ones that are actually of note, which is almost all of them in the beginning of the series, but by Season 2, the background characters become too many to really give each their own breakdown, with most of them not having the same kind of detail and inherent backstory of the earlier characters, and Jesus Christ, there are a lot of characters already, with a lot of details to break down, making this one of our longest videos so far, so bless you if you make it to the end. And if you want more Helluva Boss on top of this still, check out my ranking of all the episodes over on our side channel, Random Universe, link in the pinned comment down below. In the pilot of the show, we see some very simple demonic extras in footage that Blitz has filmed. The first footage we see is just random acts of violence, it seems, with Moxie referencing yet another video that they made that is actually a commercial. While some real humans do show up in the commercial, they also spend a lot of time killing these demons, and I think they hired sinners specifically for these little violent sequences. If the IMP gang hired imps or other natives, they'd have to actually murder them to get these visuals or use practical effects. But sinners are immortal and thus can be brutally murdered and then just regenerate or remanifest. I almost wonder if there are sinners who get paid just to be torn apart for one reason or another, knowing that they will remanifest. There could be an entire career to being someone who just gets cut up and brutally murdered for movies and commercials. Anything to get paid in hell, I guess. The weird extra footage Blitz has of them killing random demons I imagine to be extra takes that never made it into the commercial. Following the commercials, the pilot also featured this demon lady, with Luna kicking away her baby in a stroller. In this pilot, the traits of species and such were not as well defined as they are in the series proper, with Millie even seeming to have white hair that was dyed black instead of the natural black hair of lady imps. A lot of this can be headcanoned as early rough designs just being sinners, but this lady was presumably with her baby, and thus seems to be a native to Hell since the sinners can't reproduce. In later episodes, such as Season 2 Episode 6, this demon lady would return looking mostly the same, even having her stroller again, but with an updated design of pink instead of red, and a simple pattern at the end of her horns. This, with her wings from before, seems to make her a succubus, though originally she seemed very generically imp-like, even without the proper horns. There's also another lady demon who appears in front of the homeless imp, who appears to be a succubus and can even be seen in Season 1 Episode 7 with more hot pink skin as well. This episode, of course, also featured a flashback to the morning Blitz stole Stolas' grimoire, which ended with him interrupting a tea party of Stella's with two mysterious guests. Some fans theorized this mysterious man would be Andrealphus, but Andrealphus ended up having his own design, with this character, and presumably his wife here, appearing in flashbacks of the same time in Season 2, Episode 1, where they are shown to be part of the larger Goetia network. Now, Episode 1 was mostly on Earth dealing with the murder family, and I don't plan to talk about humans outside of notable and interesting examples. But before going on their mission up to Earth, the IMP gang does run into two imps who are firemen. Hell is a place that seems to have some great public resources despite it also being Hell, and considering how nice the transit system is from one ring to another, which people can casually use just to go to parties even, I'm not surprised there are systems in place to protect the public property like firemen. Episode 2 introduces us to a lot of new background characters, including ones who will recur quite a bit, starting with Stolas' imp butler. Stella accuses Stolas of wanting to have sex with this imp the way he did with Blitz, but Stolas shows a preference for Blitz as a taller imp, pointing out just how much smaller Millie and Moxie are as Wrathring imps in the same episode. This imp likewise is probably not of interest to Stolas. At Loo Loo Land, we see a variety of imps, such as this cute little baby who Moxie gives a bunch of needled morphine to. Standing under a sign for a roller coaster, we also get what looks like our first appearance of a hybrid species mix of imp and dinosaur demon, which we will learn are regular in the Greed Ring in later episodes. This makes sense considering the pterodactyl-looking demon as an attraction here that ends up eating RoboFizz. We will also see later in Episode 5 that the demonic horses seen at the carousel are relatively accurate to actual horses down in the Wrath Ring, and it makes me wonder if there are also demonic triceratops running around the Greed Ring like on the carousel, who aren't humanoid or standing on 2 feet like we will see in later episodes. Considering one of the humanoid dinosaur demons we will meet later is a pterodactyl-looking demon, it seems that they can both exist as humanoids and as larger wild species in the Greed Ring. With that half T-Rex looking imp is also an imp girl, who unfortunately dies when the sign crushes her, I imagine, which is a shame because it looks like she works here and was handing out a ticket. Mostly what we will see in this episode are just families, with there being a lot of children in particular since this is a family theme park. And I almost wonder if this kid looking at an animatronic T-Rex is actually a hybrid as well, as his horns are weirdly shaped and he has more of a goat-like appearance overall. At one shot, we get a look of a lot of different imps enjoying the park all at once, including one imp who is just an imp version of the character from the Where's Waldo books. This shot also includes some imps with mixed colored hair, which I generally believe to be dyed within the show. However, based on the imp telenovela that Stolas was watching later in the season, I also wonder if it's more natural for female imps to have a little white in their hair as a sort of graying effect, more common when you get older, but something you can still experience when young or feel comfortable dyeing your hair to for embellishment. We even see two kids in the same shot with black and white hair, but in more of a design pattern that you'd expect for like an emo kid or a scene kid or what have you. These two are apparently ImpSonas for animators on the show named Sky and Logan, with ImpSonas for characters generally having more details and combining the hair colors of the different genders I've noticed. Though even this older male imp on his phone seems to have thrown in a black stripe into his hair to help him stand out a bit more. Over here in the corner, turned away from us, is actually the ImpSona of Vivzie Pop herself, which we will see again in later episodes, and I'll be sure to point out as well. Another ImpSona in this episode is Emiliano Garcia, who can be seen riding the roller coaster. In addition to the families and the more common background imps working there, we also see an interesting gang of imps who are stalking Stolas. My theory is that they are actually hired by Stolas, allowing him to be in danger and for Blitz to rescue him, something he seems to enjoy. Interestingly, a lot of these imps dress more masculine, but have horns we associate with female imps, and I like to think it's just a gang of lady imps who go around committing crime in the greed ring, which we know largely to be made up of gangs and mafias from later episodes. There is even a town in Greed called Ransom, so I may be wrong about these imps being hired by Stolas, and they really may just be that brazen and trying to kidnap a Goetia prince. In addition to all these, there is also a couple called the Lovebirds who appear in quite a few episodes, going to the same locations as the IMP gang, being some of the most reused in terms of background characters as far as I've noticed. Now, episode 3 takes place mostly on Earth, but before going there, we do meet a lot of Verosica's Succubus, as well as a few demons standing in line to look at Blitz's promotional poster. Among the Succubus, we have one who is known as Ace, who is later seen at Aussie's, seemingly on a date with Josh. Likewise, Coco and Apple seem to be together in episode 7, with Kat, Milky, and Kiki rounding out the posse. While they're standing in line to look at Blitz's sign, we can see a variety of demons, native and sinners as well. To start, there are quite a few ImpSonas here, including Vivzie Pops again, but she is still facing away from the camera, so we can't exactly see her. There's also an ImpSona for Greg Savenchko. I love his Ow the Ed shirt that he's wearing, and Lydia Lou drinking some coffee it looks like. Crescent Rhodes, who has a beautiful kabuki-themed ImpSona with a Hellhound-looking fox mask. Hunter Braley, looking at the sign suspicious-like, and Victor Garrido, whose ImpSona looks like it could be a hybrid, but as these are all crew members for Helluva Boss, their ImpSonas are more a reflection of them and shouldn't be read too deeply for lore. Also in line are a few obvious sinners with unique designs, but no real backstories, just people who would look like someone on Earth who died. This includes this dog-looking demon, who I guess could also maybe just be a hellhound, this pink guy with weird crab claws, the piranha plant, and this edgy punk rock-looking dragon girl? There's also this demon with a weird skull and antlers, who people have told me various different things about, but who I can't find any official source on. Then, of course, this character is Travis, who is actually a character in Hazbin Hotel, who drops Angel off in the pilot and then insults him. Episode 4 didn't have much in the way of background demons, but it did introduce the Cherubs, with there being 4 cherubs in the background behind Deary, who didn't get a chance to speak. These are Rachel, who appears to be a lamb, Bee the bee, Bo another lamb, and Honey another bee. I like these a lot and would love to see more cherubs in general. Also, a lot of people want me to point out that if you look at the audience watching the opera in this episode, one of them looks like Angel Dust. It's not Angel Dust, as that wouldn't make sense timeline-wise, but he is dressed like Angel Dust. Episode 5 introduced us to a lot of interesting background characters in the Wrath Ring, particularly that of Millie's family. Millie's parents are named Joe and Nguyen. In addition to Millie, they of course have Sally Mae, as well as 3 brothers who don't appear to have names, so I'm going to call them the Skinny Boy, the Strong Boy, and the Chunky Boy. What's cool about the strong boy is that he has a scar shaped like a Baphomet on his arm, which may have just been an early artist choice to make him look cool, but which alludes to him having some sort of interest or reverence for Baphomet as a singular entity, or the many candle-headed Baphomet demons we see in the series. As far as contestants in the Pain games go, they mostly look like generic Wrath Imps. The most interesting in this episode are the ImpSona, such as crew members Emily and Eddie, who can be seen sitting in the crowd watching the Pain games. Watching Striker's song is also Celia Concalves here with this little bee in her hair, who has an extra cute design, I think. There's a few more ImpSonas in this episode from what I understand, but I can't find them specifically, and I know they will be in the background of later episodes and are easier to see there, so we will be addressing them there. Episode 6 focuses on an Earth mission with the Dork, so has no background demons for us to discuss. Now, Episode 7, Aussies, introduced us to quite a few. The first place we see a bunch of demons at is the Helluvator, where I want to start with this cute little imp couple with the old man with his cane that is actually a pitchfork like the devil. Apparently, their names are Ollie and Bertha. Here also we have this kid, Hearth, who has a horn piercing, which looks super painful to me, didn't know that was a thing. Then there's this character named Aspen, this shifty guy, and Ray Reloaded, who looks very unique. This imp Ray has wings, which is something we mostly see of imps in the Lust Ring, likely from intermixing with Succubus over many generations, but this one doesn't have any other distinctly Succubus features, other than maybe the vampire teeth being more distinctly Succubus, though not seen on all of them as sticking out in particular like on Ray. We will later see a more obvious Succubus imp named Jessie guarding the door to Aussies with vampire-looking teeth as well. Outside of the imps, this elevator also has a succubus named Tub, though fans notice she looks a lot different from the average succubus and could also be sort of a mixed breed, which I believe to be a possessor. In the background, we also see a half succubus, half shark named Alma, who will appear in later episodes, such as a fan of Fizzarolli's in Season 2, Episode 7. Additionally, there are two demons that fans have been calling possessors lately, as the name given to the deep sea demons we theorize to come from the Envy Ring. Their names are Cicero and Archer, with Cicero looking like he's performing music at the Helluvator to try and make some money, and Archer looking very mysterious in his trench coat. Then there's this small family of Baphomet demons with a mom and two little demons named P and Wee. Before going into the club, we also meet Gabriella, a seemingly important character in a TV show from the Wrath Ring. Inside the club, we see a few imps with succubus features flying around and serving food, while two colorful goat-headed Baphomets are dancing in cages, though these flying imp succubus waitresses will also dance in cages later. In the very next shot, we get our first look at some of the crowd who will be appearing a lot in this episode, with us mostly seeing more of the deep sea demons here. These two over here are named Natasha and Ruby, and at the other table, with her back turned away from us, is the jellyfish lady, who can be seen better in other shots, as well as Turquoise. Oh, and the jellyfish lady's name is actually Yalo, by the way. After that, we get a nice shot of two shark demons from the Greed Ring in the background named Whiskey and Rum. When looking around the club, we can see Stolas' butler surrounded by a bunch of demons who seem to find him very attractive, including a few of the succubus from Verosca's posse. Additionally, there is this half-imp, half-Baphomet demon who, despite being so far away from this other Baphomet demon, was drawn alongside him in the character sheets, indicating that they may have come together and both find this imp attractive. Their names are Tim and Waxy. This last demon is a mysterious one named Tingle, who appears to be on a date with a succubus named Rod later in the episode. This is the one species that we don't seem to have any solid ideas on. In the more recent episodes, there were a lot of different demons dressing up as jesters, but these ones have some distinctly interesting skeleton imagery involved with their designs, and we have no idea what they are or where they are from, outside of probably being from Greed because of the colors of their outfits. In addition to him, we also see two more of these demons named Calliope and Larson, who appear to be on a date together as well. Following that, we can see a succubus couple making out being watched by a sleazy patron who's literally named Yuck in the production notes. A small imp with seemingly no succubus features manages to work here taking orders, in addition to the flying imp succubus that deliver the food by air. When Fizz is on stage, there's a very interesting couple sitting at one table in the background that are hard to see the species of, but according to the wiki, they appear to be imps, with their character art having more traditional designs for the horns, making me wonder what the story is with the more unique designs here in the episode. Two demons I never noticed until the wiki pointed them out to me are these light and dark fish demons over here named Orita and Merc. Orita appears to be like the jellyfish lady we saw before, but with a different color tint, with Merc looking more like a wild anglerfish than a humanoid demon like most of the others are. In the background, we can also see 2 more shark demons on a date named Lemon and Ink, as well as a gang of Fizzaroli worshipping imps. Finally, there's this down on his luck shark that seems to be here for all the sad reasons, barely raising his head up to properly be in a shot. Of course, in addition to all of this, there are other imps and succubus in the background as generic crowd peoples, but as I said, I don't want to dive into those who don't really have anything extra to add to the story and the world building by trying to break them down. Episode 8 took place at Beelzebub's party, where we got to see all sorts of different background characters, particularly Hellhounds. There is of course Vicky, who isn't really a background character, but a good lead into the background Hellhounds, with her seeming to be popular among them, with Vicky having some sort of high status because of who adopted her. Next to her is a Hellhound who looks a lot like Vaggie, a fun Easter egg in addition to another who looks a lot like Angel Dust. While the Vaggie dog is an Easter egg, we can imagine that the Angel Dust Hellhound is actually a fan of Angel Dust, who is famous throughout Hell, and thus tried to model his look after him. Later in the episode, Luna seems to become friends with one of these Hellhounds named Esme. Vicky's other friend is voiced by Vivzy Pop from what I understand, and her design kind of looks like a Vivzy Houndsona, which is a great lead-in to discuss the many Houndsonas that appear in the background of this episode. There's Carolina Paez, the FX director's Houndsona, series writer Adam Nalen as a Houndsona, Crescent Rhodes has a really cool design over here, Sterling Richer also looks really cool, Kevin Lewinsky can be seen eating a taco, Alicia Clark with the cool poofy fur, Zach Gearing in the board shorts, Phoebe Chi Borman almost looks more like a cat or panther demon, though with these being Houndsonas, they have more flexibility in how they can appear, like I said before. Vlad Shianova also has a cool design, I could see her being Luna's friend, and finally there is Gabe Del Val, but that is just the end of the Houndsonas. In addition to these, there are a few ImpSonas, including Jane Walker, who is carrying a little demon chihuahua with her to this Hellhound party, which I find pretty funny, and Sarah Fisher, who appears again in the circus as well. Cecilia Callas Conclaves also reappears here. In addition to the ImpSonas, there are also a lot of random imp party guests in the background as well, but the only ones that really stand out are Dennis, who actually gets a line, and the 2 transgender imps we see in the background as well. Also, this isn't canon, but I'm calling dibs on being this Hellhound with the sunglasses that Beelzebub throws into the punch bowl. That's me. I was totally there for that. Now moving on to Season 2, Episode 1, this episode was mostly flashbacks and introduced us to a variety of background characters, mostly imps at Blitz's family circus and the Gewisha at Stola and Stella's party. Outside of the Imp Circus family, there is Stolas' first butler, who I believe was a big influence on Stolas, being yet another cold, distant father figure in his life, perhaps partially influencing Stolas' interest in imps. While at the circus, we can see some of the ImpSonas of the crew in the crowd, including those imp children, Sky and Logan, that were seen in Loo Loo Land, but they're even younger here now in this flashback without their cool punk hair, with them just looking really adorable. Sarah Fisher's ImpSona appears here a bit younger too, and also lacking the cool white stripe she had. Most of the crowd is unimportant, though there is this crazy case of imp twin girls who each have only one horn, each having the horn that the other is missing, making them a perfect pair, and I think that's pretty interesting. Now, working at the circus is a variety of funny-looking imps, which is sort of the point of a circus. This is a family circus, but not everyone is actually related, with it being owned by Cash Buxo and focusing on his family, but Fizzaroli being clearly not related to him, with Blitz having feelings for Fizz, and his father giving Fizz a card saying he wishes that Fizz was his son. Because this is a circus, Cash would hire the weirdest looking imps he could find from all over Hell. Imps who don't fit into any particular subspecies, but have their own weird offshoots of evolution that make them outcasts even in their own rings. Here, their weird proportions are used to lure audiences in with a sense of mystery and watch their crazy performances. Probably the fan-favorite character in the circus is the little girl on the tightrope who appears to be a trans imp as well. We see this imp behind Blitz later in the episode Oops after the fire starts at the circus, with some fans having mistaken her for Blitz's sister, who looks very similar, but as we can see in her own appearances, she has the more typical female horns and other more subtle differences in their designs as well. Later at the Gewisha party, we see that Stolas has 2 more imp waiters, a man and a woman, as well as 2 Hellhound security guards, one being a chihuahua. The Goetia are interesting and beautiful, but unfortunately I haven't found much information about them. As fun as it would be to try and figure out which of these real-life Ars Goetia demons they might line up with, we don't really have any reason to think that any Goetia of rank are here, and instead they may just be like Stella, the demons who make up the Goetia family but don't hold one of the roles described in the real-life Lesser Key of Solomon. In the next episode, Seeing Stars, we mostly hang out on Earth in Hollywood, so the only new background characters are some imps helping to move Stella's stuff out of Stolas' mansion. In the next episode, X's and O's brought us back to the Greed Ring, where we got a large variety of new types of characters. While flying over Greed, we see a lot of imps who look similar, but still a bit different from each other, indicating they may be what we could call the Greed Imps, as each ring seems to have certain clustered traits that distinguish them from imps from other rings. Here, the imps have mostly typical male horns, but with the black stripes being much bigger than the white. This episode was great for introducing us to the wide variety of shark breeds that exist in the Greed Ring, all of which have come together to form an elite class of loan sharks who deal high-interest loans to the others in the Greed Ring, particularly the imps. We won't be naming all of these sharks, but I'll give our editor Haro enough time to show off some of them, focusing particularly on the cool ones. These sharks have a much nicer looking community overall that they live in, though they allow some non-sharks in as well, such as Moxie's father Crimson. The gang also has a few mixed species sharks, such as one shark Succubus named Stu, half imp shark named Butch, and a half shark half possessor named Marcella, meaning she has ties to the oceans of greed as well as the oceans of envy. The next episode, Western Energy, opens in a high-end cafe that is mostly filled with Goetia like Stolas, Stella, and Andrealphis. Here we see the ImpSona of staff member Sam Miller, which looks very extravagant. Here the ImpSonas of Sky and Logan appear again, this time serving tea as workers, and one of them just being in the purse of the Goetia. When Stryker jumps in, he lands on the table of a succubus couple, though both look like they might have features of other species as well, such as the eyes of the lady and the more imp-looking features of this man. There's also a Baphomet working at the counter here, and I think the possessor may be the same possessor seen on a date at Aussie's, though I can't be sure. In the Wrath Ring, we get to meet a few imps who sing songs about Stryker, and then later, Moxie and Millie meet a gang of imps who have a much bigger leader who appears to be a succubus that went Wrath Ring and became a cowboy. In the Sloth Ring, we meet two more deep sea demons, a Karen and her child. Working at the Sloth Ring Hospital, we'd have a few Baphomets as well, one doctor and one so hopped up on pharmaceuticals that she has no idea what she's doing there. Later, we'd see the Plague Doctors, who could be any species underneath the disguises, if not a species themselves. And we also got to see a variety of demons who work for the news, who are covering Stolas' hospitalization. A lot of news anchors appear to be succubus demons, as they are considered the most attractive, with there being a Hellhound cameraman, and Lady Imps also trying to cover the event as well, and what looks like a crazy looking half Baphomet, half imp, with a succubus or something over here. Oh, also this pretty little possessor in her cute little dress with the microphone. In the next episode, Blitz returns to the Sloth Ring, where we meet an interesting looking Baphomet who I think could be mixed with another species, though I'm honestly not sure. The rest of this episode takes place mostly on Earth, with only human characters outside of the IMP gang and of course Blitz's sister Barbie Wire. But on their way there, Blitz does interact with a succubus to use their Osmodian crystal, and another in a pharmacy to find his sister, who appears to be half imp, or perhaps just a lust imp in general. Season 2, Episodes 6 and 7 takes us back to the Greed Ring primarily, where we meet a lot of mobsters, locals, and later, fans of Fizz who seem to come from all over hell. First, in the Lust Ring, we meet one of the many succubus who will be in the background of this episode. Some will be working at Aussie's factory, and some appear to just be Osmodius's entourage. This first succubus is voiced by Vivzipop, and I would say vaguely resembles her as well, but her design here doesn't go all out like with her mysterious ImpSona. When Fizz first arrives in Greed, it's in front of a bank that seems to have just gotten robbed, with a bunch of imps fighting each other for the money, and there being a half shark, half imp in the gang as well. In the shots that follow, we get closer looks at some of the sharks in the background, including one that looks like a feathered shark, but we'll come back to that. Also, the one behind her seems to have butterfly wings, weird as we mostly only see demonic bat wings like the succubus have so far. Then, after passing that succubus from the pilot who got a redesign here, we see what looks like a pterodactyl demon on the left, and what I think is another half shark, half possessor like Marcella, with stronger traits from her possessor side. Then Fizz passes what looks like a cross between a dog and an imp, but they're in a jester costume, so it's hard to tell what they really are. But more importantly, there is another dinosaur-looking demon here with the more modern depiction of dinosaurs having feathers, which I think would make that previous feathered demon we saw half-feathered dinosaur like this guy here, and perhaps either half-possessor or perhaps even half-shark. At the end, there are a few more imps, but also what looks like a half-shark, half-succubus with wings, which I imagine to be a pretty cool combo because that means they can swim as well as fly. There's also this crazy looking skeleton of a dinosaur, which seems to confirm that there is in fact a bone-based skeleton demon species, with them perhaps meaning to be sort of fossilized versions of the dinosaur demons that we see walking around in this episode as well. Plus there's whatever this short little costume thing is next to them. When Fizz and Blitz get into a fight, we get a good look at a lot of demons in the background, including a variety of sharks, and of course, most of you are just here for the Big Booba dinosaur lady. Also, check out this giant jacked succubus imp turned away from the camera. Surrounding Crimson is of course his shark gang again, with some new members that I'm gonna give Haro the chance to show off because they're all really cool and colorful looking. They're the most Pokemon feeling of the different species, with how different they can all look with their different shapes and sizes and colors. Pretty cool, right? Now, the most recent episode, Mammon's Magnificent Mid-Season Special, is probably the most hardcore when it comes to background characters, with the episode being largely about Fizz performing for large crowds. To start, the ImpSonas of many crew members return or appear for the first time in this episode, many of them decked out in Mammon fan gear. This includes Hunter Braley, Celia Goncalves, Sat Gearing, Glitteronin, series writer Adam Nalen, Maria Karlamova, Pandaleaf in the crowd, Heidi Matthew, which is listed as an ImpSona, but appears to be half Baphomet as well, Sterling Richer in awesome Mammon gear, Samantha Ames, Carolina Boquamp, Austin Callista, Vlada Shianova, and Ariel Somerville, who is maybe half imp, but also either shark or part snake like Stryker appears to be. Then there's Julia Bebsheva, Rachel Valaro, Brooke Burnett, and Melanie Mrozek. That is a lot of ImpSonas, and I imagine with them needing so many crowd members, reaching for existing ImpSonas that crew members had drawn for themselves would be a fast way to fill up the cast. In addition to the ImpSonas, Crescent Road's Houndsona appears as well, along with Adolfo Saw and Skrillex, and Justine Gurley being introduced as Hellhounds as well. And if you thought the Houndsonas were the end of it, no, the lead background artist Amanda Hurd also appears in this episode with her Succusona, as does Ale Bacon, and Phoebe Borman seems to have a Sharksona in the show as well. And guys, the rest of the background characters are filled with so many cool, crazy-looking demons of all species, some crazy hybrid types, but there's so many, and unlike other episodes, most of them don't have the backstory built into their designs or what they are doing. As cool as these extras look, they don't have the backstory that some of the other episodes were able to give their background characters because of the smaller scope of the episodes. But considering how long this video already is, that's a testament to just how crazy deep VivziePop and her crew like to go with production and world building, with all of it leading to a world that feels so real and filled with active people that we can get to an episode like this and just have a crazy ton of cool new designs that we've never seen before and be able to categorize them and tell a lot about them. Of course, before we go, I'd also like to talk about the hearing impaired imp that Fizz talks to, who we know to be named Oliver. This character is extremely divisive, with people either loving his appearance in the episode as someone who Fizz could relate to because of the horrible injuries he had at a younger age that left him disabled, even with the help of cybernetic enhancements. This being part of Fizz's backstory is inspirational to this kid, who sees that he can go on to be a big performer one day if he wants to as well. Some people got upset when it was later revealed that he had no name during production, with accusations being made that Spindlehorse included this character for shallow reasons, and essentially used the deaf community by including this character without giving him a name. Well, many of the background characters have names, many of them don't, and it seems mostly to come down to who is drawing the characters and how much personality they want to give them based off of their designs. Characters are more likely to be named when they look exotic, as we can see in the storyboards, with their more distinct colors and features lending to easy nicknames essentially, but that doesn't make them canon per se. The idea that this character had less thought put into him because of a lack of a name seems like the typical haters trying to hate argument, where no matter what VivziePop does, she's going to be talked about as if she's in the wrong. At the end of the day, Fizzaroli is an extremely developed character who helps to provide representation for the disabled, and like with any character, he's going to have satellite characters who reflect what he represents without being nearly as developed, and adding another disabled character doesn't erase the good that Fizz does simply because the character did not need a name. The idea that Vivzy Pop, or anyone, is a villainous person who is just not thinking enough about proper representation by including a deaf character in addition to another disabled character is really shallow, and hopefully none of you take those types of trolls seriously, as it only leads to less representation for disabled people, with people getting attacked anytime they try to include them. But what do you guys think? Let me know your favorite background characters in the comments down below, and if somehow this still isn't enough Helluva Boss for you, go check out my Helluva Boss episode ranking video over on Random Universe. See you guys there.